You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. And as always, I apologize for all of my Hebrew pronunciation. I know I'm going to pronounce Hebrew words wrong, so instead of getting annoyed, I give you permission to laugh at how I say things. Today's topic is the Holocaust. The Holocaust, or Shoah in Hebrew, was the systematic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. Other groups, including Roma, Gypsies, people with disabilities, Poles, Soviet POWs, and LGBTQ individuals, were also persecuted and killed. But the Jewish people were at the center of the Nazis' ideology of hate, scapegoated for Germany's problems, and targeted for complete extermination. To talk about the Holocaust in just 10 minutes feels impossible, like trying to explain every Marvel movie in a single TikTok clip. But what we can do is cover the essentials, how it happened, what it meant, and why remembering it is so crucial today. The Holocaust didn't begin with gas chambers or concentration camps. It began with words, laws, and propaganda. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power in Germany in 1933, promoting a poisonous ideology that blamed Jews for Germany's economic woes and defeat in World War I. They spread lies about Jews controlling banks, media, and politics, reinforcing centuries-old anti-Semitic myths. The Nazis passed laws like the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, stripping Jews of citizenship and banning marriage with non-Jews. Imagine suddenly being told you weren't allowed to vote, work certain jobs, or even marry the person you love just because of your background. Propaganda films, posters, and speeches hammered the idea that Jews were dangerous outsiders. At first, many Germans didn't object. Some even supported it because it was framed as restoring national pride. That's how it starts, with prejudice becoming policy and hate becoming law. The othering of Jews was the foundation for what would later become genocide. As the Nazis consolidated power, life for Jews in Germany and Nazi-occupied territories became increasingly unbearable. Jewish businesses were boycotted, books were burned, and people were attacked. Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, in November 1938, was a violent turning point. Nazi mobs destroyed synagogues, smashed Jewish businesses, and arrested around 30,000 Jewish men, sending many to early concentration camps. Think of it as a horrifying message. You're not safe here, and things will only get worse. Soon after, Jews were forced into ghettos, crowded, walled-off neighborhoods in cities like Warsaw and Łódź. Ghettos had miserable conditions, starvation, disease, and constant fear. Imagine being crammed into an apartment with 5 other families, food so scarce that people boiled wallpaper glue for calories, and soldiers patrolling outside. This was all before the final solution. The Nazi plan to systematically annihilate the Jewish people was even fully underway. The ghettos were a halfway point, meant to dehumanize, isolate, and weaken communities before the next stage of genocide. By 1941, during World War II, the Nazis escalated their campaign from persecution to mass murder. Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads, followed the German army into the Soviet Union, shooting Jewish men, women, and children in mass graves. The most infamous massacre took place at Babi Yar, near Kiev, where over 33,000 Jews were shot in just 2 days. But the Nazis wanted an even more efficient, industrialized way to kill. That's when the final solution was put into action. The Wannsee Conference of January 1942 gathered Nazi officials to coordinate extermination plans. Instead of bullets, which were seen as wasteful and psychologically difficult for soldiers, they built extermination camps with gas chambers disguised as showers. Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, and others became death factories. Trains packed with Jews arrived daily, families were separated on arrival, and most were murdered immediately. It was bureaucracy meets brutality, paperwork, timetables, and train schedules, all dedicated to genocide. It's chilling to think of how ordinary logistics and planning were weaponized to kill millions. Life in the concentration and extermination camps was a living nightmare for those not killed upon arrival. Prisoners faced starvation, forced labor, medical experiments, and brutal violence. Auschwitz alone killed over 1 million people, the majority Jews. Survivors remember the smell of burning bodies, the cruelty of guards, and the struggle to keep hope alive. People were tattooed with numbers, their names stripped away, their humanity denied. And yet, there were moments of resistance, courage, and resilience. Some inmates secretly taught children, smuggled food, or kept records so the world would know the truth. There were even uprisings, like at Sobibor in 1943, where prisoners fought back and some escaped. It's like the ultimate David and Goliath story, except here David had no slingshot, only unimaginable bravery. For many, survival wasn't about strength but luck. A guard looking away, a stranger sharing bread, a disease missed. Every survivor's story is both miraculous and heartbreaking, a testament to human endurance against impossible odds. Jewish resistance wasn't limited to camps. In 1943, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising became one of the most famous acts of defiance. With limited weapons, Jewish fighters held off German troops for nearly a month before being crushed. It didn't stop the destruction, but it proved something vital. Jews were not passive victims. They fought for dignity and survival. Other resistance took the form of spiritual defiance, celebrating holidays in secret, keeping traditions alive, writing diaries, or singing songs. Anne Frank's diary, for example, has become one of the most famous personal records of the Holocaust, offering the world a window into the fears and hopes of a Jewish teenager hiding from the Nazis. These acts of resistance remind us that the Holocaust wasn't just about death. It was about people trying to live, love, and hold on to their humanity even in the darkest of times. Remembering this resistance is just as important as remembering the suffering. It tells the whole story of courage alongside tragedy. The Holocaust didn't only devastate Jewish communities, it reshaped the entire world. By 1945, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population had been murdered. Ancient communities in Poland, Lithuania, and elsewhere were wiped out completely. When Allied forces liberated camps like Buchenwald and Bergen-Belsen, soldiers were horrified by what they saw. Piles of corpses, skeletal survivors, and evidence of mass killing. Photographs and testimonies from liberators helped expose the full scale of Nazi crimes. After the war, the Nuremberg trials prosecuted Nazi leaders for crimes against humanity, setting an important precedent in international law. But for survivors, liberation was just the beginning of another struggle. Where to go, how to rebuild, how to live with trauma. Many had lost their entire families. Displaced persons camps became temporary homes, and for some, the founding of the State of Israel in 1948 offered a new beginning. Still, the scars of the Holocaust would never fully heal, shaping Jewish identity and global awareness for generations. The Holocaust forces us to confront difficult questions about humanity. How could ordinary people participate in or ignore such atrocities? Some Germans were true believers in Nazi ideology. Others were just following orders. Many more simply looked away. And yet, there were also the righteous among the nations, non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews. People like Oskar Schindler, who saved over 1,000 Jews through his factory, or Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat who issued thousands of protective passports. These stories show us both the depths of cruelty humans can reach and the heights of compassion. The Holocaust is not only a Jewish story, it's a human story about what happens when hate, indifference, and prejudice go unchecked. It challenges us to ask, what would I have done? Would I resist? Would I speak out? Would I help? The answers aren't simple, but the questions are vital if we want to prevent future genocides. Remembering the Holocaust has become a moral obligation across the world. Museums, memorials, and days of remembrance exist so the victims are never forgotten. The phrase, "never again," isn't just a slogan. It's a call to vigilance against anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry in every form. Sadly, anti-Semitism still exists today, sometimes in new disguises: conspiracy theories, online hate, or attacks on Jewish communities. Holocaust denial is another disturbing problem, where people claim it was exaggerated or didn't happen at all. That's why education is so important. Survivors have spent decades sharing their stories with students, ensuring that first-hand voices pass on the truth. As survivors age, it's up to us to carry their memories forward. Think of it like a torch relay. The flame of memory must never go out, because forgetting isn't neutral. It risks allowing history to repeat itself. That's the real danger: indifference and amnesia. So what can we learn from the Holocaust today? First, that hatred doesn't start with violence. It starts with stereotypes, jokes, and discrimination that people let slide. When we hear anti-Semitic comments or see hate speech online, staying silent allows it to grow. Second, we learn that ordinary people have extraordinary power, for good or for evil. Whether it's a guard at a camp or a neighbor hiding a family, choices matter. Third, we realize that memory is an act of justice. By telling the stories, honoring the victims, and supporting survivors, we affirm their dignity. The Holocaust teaches us about the fragility of democracy, the dangers of propaganda, and the need for moral courage. It's heavy, yes, but it's also hopeful, because knowing this history gives us the chance to build a better future. If never again is to mean anything, it must start with us. Right here, right now, standing against hate wherever we see it.